So I want to talk to you about the new EU identity wallet. And there are some challenges in this new legislation. And we recognize them by our experience on personal data management. And I want to tell you a bit about that. So, well, first about me. The first part I was already introduced by Robert. But I'm also active in the MyData community, who works on, well, basically putting people back in control over their data. And there I'm a group leader of the MyData Operator group and also involved with the MyData Operator Award, who basically recognizes personal data wallets, SSI stuff, for doing the good stuff. So, what I will talk about today, first I'll dive into personal data management a bit, then go to the EU view on personal data, and from there I'll go to the new EU identity wallets. So, let's talk about personal data management. So, if I talk about personal data management, what am I talking about? Well, there have been used different terms over the years, so that means personal data management, persoonlijke digitale omgeving, personal data sharing, personal data wallets, regie op gegevens if you're talking with government people, and of course the last one, which has been used a lot for the last year, self-sovereign identity, SSI. But for now they're totally different, but also kind of the same thing. So I'm mostly going to use personal data management, personal data wallets, and probably also I'm going to say a lot of operators, because that's the term we use at MyData, and I'm kind of used to it. So, why do we need to become human-centric? Well, there is a need to give individuals back the control over their own data. So right now they're unable to access their own data, adjust it, and reuse it. So if we want to go to a human-centric data economy, we need to move from formal to actionable rights. Meaning, well, now I have the right to access, but did one of you ever use this right to access? Well, I guess that's a no, because it's a hurdle. So we need to make this a one-click right, and also be able to do more with this data. That's also the second point. So stuff like GDPR, it's only about protecting us, but we cannot do anything with our own data. So we need to move to data empowerment, where we can actually do something useful with our own data. And the last point is moving from closed to open ecosystems. So now data is often kept in closed silos. It's unable to flow. And if it flows, it's often controlled by one or two parties, like, well, the big techs we don't really like. So it's my belief we should move to open ecosystems where data can easily flow between parties under the control of the individual. Well, if you agree, you can sign the declaration as well at mydata.org/declaration. And if you are enthusiastic about this idea, you can also join our well, meetup in Amsterdam next month with the whole MyData community. I think Katrina will also be there. I think she just left off for a second, but yeah, about that. So if I'm talking about personal data management, what does it look like? Well, on the one side we have the data source, and on the other side we have the data using service. Right now, the individual cannot control this flow of data, and this is where we need operators or personal data wallets. They are not the goal per se, but I believe they're essential for giving back people control over their own data. So the operator or the personal data wallet in MyData terminology is the role responsible for operating this infrastructure and providing tools in a human-centric system of personal data exchange. And they enable the individuals to securely access, manage, save and use this data about themselves and control the flow between data sources and data using services. So this all sounds great, right? If we can actually do this. Well, the point is we can. this is from research I did last year. These are some initiatives related to personal data management or regie op gegevens. They're not all actually personal data wallets, but they help to give back the individual the control over his own data. So, well, if we don't count Mijn Overheid, do you recognize any of these? Please raise a hand if you do. Yeah, great. So why isn't it working then? Well, there are multiple reasons. And I guess for most of you, these are open doors. But valuable data cannot be accessed. So all data from the government, for example, right now, a personal data wallet like Octo, what they do is screen scraping because there's no good way to access this data. There's no clear sustainable business model. There's no, well, there are no rules on what value should be captured when you exchange data. The trust is hard to realize, and often the techies try to solve this with blockchain, but it's not a tech problem. There's little standardization and interoperability. Of course, there's the chicken and egg problem because there are no users, and there are no data using services or relying parties. So this, yeah, you won't get new users. And there are some real-life cases where you can actually use a personal data wallet, but there is no real choice for the individual, meaning that when you're allowed to use a personal data wallet, the data using service decides which wallet this is going to be, and there's no choice at all. So you're still not in control. So that's enough about personal data management and why it does not work. I'll get back to this later. But now let's move to the European view on personal data. Well, this point was already made in the last slide. So what we see is historically the EU has put the individual in the center regarding data compared to the US where the market is deciding and China, etc., where government is deciding how data about you is being used. This is probably also why all the big companies are, big new tech companies are from the US. So that's good and that's bad. But at least the EU is praised for is, well, putting the individual at least a bit in the center. But until now, the focus has been on data protection instead of data empowerment. And the EU is also realizing now that they're going to miss the boat here. So, well, data and personal data has been everywhere in the visions and new legislation by the European Commission. So this is, for example, you can see this in the Data Governance Act and also in the revised version of the eIDAS regulation. They realize now that data sharing is essential for both public and private services. And this is also where we come to the new version of eIDAS. So they realized that to get the individual in control, there is a need for self-determined personal digital wallets that would allow for secure and easy access to different services for both public and private under the user's full control. Of course, there's also other reasons why there is a need for a new regulation because, well, the first version of eIDAS basically is a bit of a failure. I think only half of the European countries has a notified eID. Some are still in work. And also, if you look at the numbers here on the right side, well, there are some people from Belgium using their probably It's Me account to get into services offered by Dutch government. Probably they had a speeding ticket and wanted to look at their photo, but use cases are limited. So now let's talk about the exciting part, the EU identity wallets. So what will change with this EU identity wallets? Well, first of all, there's going to be a shift from identity only to a wide range of attributes, also covering multiple use cases. There is a requirement for every member state to provide at least one identity wallet. So that's completely different to the slide you saw, well, 2 slides back basically, where only half of the countries has an identity solution offered. And it's not only focusing on the public service anymore, but also on the private sector. And I think this is also great. Wallets can, and in some cases even must be accepted by private organizations. And in particular, there already mentioned finance, health, education, transport, energy, and telecom. So, what are the requirements on this wallet? Well, it must be free to the individual. It must support assurance level high. And whenever a service provider from private sector decides to accept this EU identity wallet, then there must always be a free choice for the individual whether he would like to use this or not, or use another identity. And last, which is also great from the SSI perspective, the companies who provide these wallets are not allowed to do anything strange with your data, except for making sure the wallet actually works. Then you might ask yourself, when will we have this identity wallet? Well, they have quite ambitious plans. So right now they're working on a technical architecture, and I think even at the start of, or April 2022, they will start piloting. And then 1 year later, there should actually be identity wallets for everyone. So I see Will already nodding no. So I think, do you think it's a bit too ambitious?
It's good that the European Commission starts with a high ambition.
Yeah, indeed. So then the question is, to wrap up, will eIDAS be the killer legislation for personal data management? Well, there are some people here in this room who probably will say yes, because DataKeeper is also here, and they already are happy to become one of the EU identity wallets. Also, IRMA sees this as a great opportunity, and I understand this, because this might be their a good use case that can show, yeah, we really have we are here, we are really needed, because they have been personal data wallets have been struggling to find the right use case. But then, if we look at the challenges we face within personal data management, there are still some challenges that are not addressed within this eIDAS regulation. So, valuable data sources cannot still not be accessed. There is nothing in this eIDAS regulation which says government needs to offer data to these wallets. So it's nice that you have an identity wallet, but you still cannot put in your attributes if you still need to get them via screen scraping. Well, I said it's going to be free for the user. That's great, but there's still no clear sustainable business model. So who is going to pay for this? It's also a good question. It's already written down, so I hope we're going to discuss this. And last, the eIDAS regulation says that every country can decide whether they will offer a wallet itself or will start creating some kind of framework. So it might be that there's still no real choice for the individual when the government decides to just offer one identity wallet. So will this new eIDAS regulation be a success? I don't know. I hope so. But at least let's discuss these challenges over the upcoming 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Koen, for your presentation. Any questions towards Koen? No? Everything clear? Alan, I think see you just thinking about. So what do you think about developments of the wallet in the future, in the next 2-3 years?
You described the challenges perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, good, great. So
I saw there might be a question from the back.
Oh, sorry.
I was wondering, our last keynote speaker spoke about how we want something that is understandable and easy usable. Given the requirements that the new eIDAS puts on wallets and the ecosystem, would you say that that is actually achievable?
Maybe you can repeat the question.
Leading question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is this going to be understandable for the end user, considering all the requirements that are in eIDAS? Well, I don't know. I can't even explain why to like a common user why they should get the DigiD app over login with passwords. So yeah, that's also going to be a challenge for sure.
For whom is it a challenge then? Is it a challenge for...
Wait, we have a microphone. Yeah. Mag nog even.
Who should tackle that challenge? Is it the European Commission, or is it Gregor with DataKeeper? So can they wrap that complexity from the user, or is it intrinsic in the whole setup of the wallet?
I think this is something that needs to be solved by the wallets as well. Make them as easy as possible, and I know most of the wallets are also working on that because, well, we all know this is not a tech problem. The wallets are there, so yeah, we just need to make sure they are usable for the end user.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? No? Just looking.
Just a comment to that. I mean,
Sorry.
isn't that why
Just a microphone.
I mean, that's why we get together, because there's no single party that can solve all these challenges.
No, and that's also why we get together with MyData, for
Exactly.
example, to solve these kind of challenges.
So we need to work together to look at these challenges and
Yeah.
make a good solution for the future.
Yeah, most definitely.
Great. Well, I like the last remark, John Erik, to work together on those challenges. So again, a big applause for Koen.